प्रतीयेत न प्रतीयेत चात्मनि तद्विद्यादात्मनो मायां यथा भासो यथा तमः. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. Parikshit Maharaj had also asked about the nature of, Lord Brahma had asked uh, the Supreme Lord about Maya. Therefore, it is appropriate that Lord Krishna explain it to him. So he describes Maya here. ऋते अर्थम विनापि वास्तवम अर्थम यद यतः किमपि अनिरुक्तम आत्मनि अधिष्ठाने प्रतीयेत सद अपि च न प्रतीयेत तद आत्मनः मया विद्यते. Know that Maya is an appearance. Basically, that's what he's saying. यथा आभासः द्विचन्द्रादिर् इत्यर्थं विना प्रतीतौ दृष्टान्तः. Just as a semblance, abhasa means reflection, abhasa also means a semblance. Like the vision of two moons, there is a certain disease of the eye because of which you see things double. So now you may know that there's only one object, but when you look at it, you see two objects. यथा तम इति असतः प्रतीतौ अप्रतीतौ तमः राहुर् यथा ग्रहमंडले स्थितोऽपि न दृश्यते यथा. Just as Rahu exists in the firmament, in the sky, and still it is not seen. That is the meaning of tamas, darkness. अथ तादृशरूपादि विशिष्टस्य आत्मनः व्यतिरेकमुखेन विज्ञापनार्थं मायालक्षणमाह प्रत्यर्थम् इत्यादि. The Supreme Lord is characterized by the sort of forms, qualities, activities as mentioned earlier. So in order to indirectly describe it, he defines Maya here. Indirectly describing means it is description via negativa. There are two types of descriptions, via positiva, and then there's another type of description via negativa. Negative description. Negative description means what it is not. So in order to help us understand what Krishna's qualities, forms, activities, etc. are not, he characterizes Maya now here. Pratyartham ityadi in the current verse. Artham. Paramarthabhutam mam vina yat pratiyeta. Pratitau tat pratitya bhava. That which is perceived without me. Because if one perceives me, one will not perceive that. Mataha bahirava yasya pratitirityasah. In other words, it's perception of something beyond Krishna. Yacha atmani na pratiyate. Yasya cha madashrayatvam vina swatah pratitir nasti iti arthaha. And which is not perceived in me, which means there is no perception without being sheltered in me. तथा लक्षणं वस्तु आत्मनः मम परमेश्वरस्य मायां जीवमाया गुणमाया इति द्व्यात्मिकां मायाख्य शक्तिं विद्या. So this substance you should know to be the Supreme Lord's Maya. I am the Supreme Lord, and that is my Maya. There are two types of Maya Shakti, Jiva Maya and Guna Maya. अत्र शुद्ध जीवस्य अपि चित् रूपत्व अविशेषेण तदीय रश्मि स्थानीयत्वेन च स्व अंतःपात एव विवक्षितः। अत्र अस्या व्यात्मिकत्वेन अभिधानं दृष्टान्तद्वैविध्येन लभ्यते। अत्र जीवमाया आख्यस्य प्रथम अंशस्य तादृशत्वं दृष्टान्तेन स्पष्टयन् असंभावनां निरस्यति यथा भास इति। So there are the pure jiva, because the pure jiva is fully spiritual, like the Supreme Lord, and it is comparable to the rays of the sun. If the Supreme Lord is compared to the sun, the pure jiva is compared to the ray of a sun. So therefore, the pure jiva is counted within the category of the Supreme Lord as a potency of the Lord himself. But because this Maya has two aspects, then there are two examples that are given here. Tatra Jiva Maya Akhyasya Prathama Amshasya Tadrishit. Okay. So the first example is Yatha Bhasa. The second example is Yatha Tamaha. आभासः ज्योतिर्बिंबस्य स्वीय प्रकाशात् व्यवहित प्रदेशे कथंचित् उच्छलित प्रतिच्छवि विशेष. Abhasa here refers to a reflection. A reflection takes place in a place that is away from the source. So yatha tasmat bahireva pratiyate na cha tam vina tasya pratitis tatha sa api iti artha. And just as a reflection is seen beyond the source, the reflection of something is seen outside of that. It is not part of the source. So like that, here also, anena pratikshavi paryaya abhasa dharmatvena tasyam abhasa akhyatvam api dhvanitam atah tat karyasya abhasa akhyatvam kuchit abhasasya nirodhasya ityado. So sometimes its effect is also referred to as an abhasa, a reflection. अत्र स यथा क्वचित् अत्यंत उद्भट आत्मा स्वचाक्षिक्य छट आपतित नेत्राणां नेत्र प्रकाशम आवृणोति. Sometimes a very shining reflection covers up what is seen to the eyes. तम आवृत्य च स्वेन अत्यंत उद्भट तेजस्त्वेनैव द्रष्टृनेत्रं व्याकुलयन् स्वोपकण्ठे वर्णशाबल्यम् उद्गीरति. कदाचित् तदेव पृथग्भावेन नाना आकारतया परिणमयति. Sometimes it assumes various forms. तथा इयमपि जीवज्ञानम् आवृणोति. Similarly, this Maya also covers up the knowledge of the jiva. Sattvaadi gunasamya rupam gunamayakhyaam jadam prakritim udgirati. कदाचित् पृथग्भूतान् सत्त्वादि गुणान् नाना आकारातया परिणमयति च इति ज्ञेयम्. And then you have this Gunamaya, which is the three modes of material nature. It brings about material prakriti. And the three modes of material nature, they transform into various forms. Taduktam ekadeshasthittasya agner ityadi. And that is noted in Vishnu Purana, that fire may be in one place, but it emanates and has its effects in other places. Let me take this out. This is an important concept. So we'll take it out from Chaitanya Charitamrita. The verse is actually quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Let us examine this. ज्योत्स्ना विस्तारिणी यथा परस्य ब्रह्मण शक्तिस्तथेदमखिलं जगत्. Just as the illumination of a fire, which is situated in one place, is spread all over, the energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahman, are spread all over this universe. तथा च Ayurveda-vidaha. And similarly, the knowers of Ayurveda Shastra, they also mention Jagadyoner Anitshasya Chidanandaikarupinaha Pumsaha Asti Prakritir Nitya Pratikchaya Iva Bhaswataha Achetanapi Chaitanya Yogena Paramatmanaha Akarod Vishwam Akhilam Anityam Natakakriti iti. So the authorities on Ayurveda also note that the Supreme Lord, who is the source of the universe and who has no desires and who is fully spiritual and blissful in form, this Purusha, he possesses Prakriti eternally, like a pratikchaya, like a reflection of sunlight. Even though she is unconscious, by the Supreme Soul's arrangement of mixing in consciousness, she creates this manifested world in its entirety, which is temporary and which has the form of a stage performance, nataka. तदेवं निमित्तांशः जीवमाया उपादानांशः गुणमाया इति अग्रेपि विवेचनीयम्. So from this we understand that the Jiva Maya aspect, the aspect of Maya that actually conditions the Jivas, that is a nimitta, that is an instrumental cause. Whereas Gunamaya, the modes of material nature, which is the actual substance of material existence, that is the ingredient cause. This should be analyzed even later on. Athaivam siddham Gunamayakhim dvitiyamapi amsham drishtantena spashtayati yathadana. And the second aspect, Gunamaya, that is now clarified through the second example. The second example is Yathatamaha. Just like darkness. Where, yeah. Tama shabdena atra purvoktam tamah prayam varnashabalyam uchyate. Tad yatha tan moola jyotish asadapi tad ashrayatvam vinana sambhavati tadvadiyam api iti. अथवा माया मात्र निरूपणेव पृथक् दृष्टान्तद्वयम्. तत्र आभास दृष्टान्तो व्याख्यातः. तमो दृष्टान्तश्च यथा अन्धकारे ज्योतिषः अन्यत्रैव प्रतीयते, ज्योतिर्विना च न प्रतीयते, ज्योतिरात्मना चक्षुषा एव तत् प्रतीतेर्न पृष्ठादि न इति तथा इयम् अपि. Just as in darkness, a source of illumination is perceived elsewhere. Without illumination, it is not perceived. The eye also depends on illumination for its perception. If it is situated behind, then one does not see. ततश्च अंशद्वयं तु प्रवृत्तिभेदेन एव उह्यं न तु दृष्टान्तभेदेन. The two aspects of Maya should be inferred on the basis of their pravrittis, their activity, their functions, not simply on the basis of the examples that are given here. यथा ससर्ज छायया अविद्यां पंचपर्वाणम् अग्रतः इत्यत्र यथा च क्वाहं तमो महदहम् इत्यादौ. And then he refers to 3.20.18 and 10.14.11 to refer to these examples. The Lord creates avidya through chaya. Now, chaya can mean shadow, chaya can also mean reflection. That is Lord Brahma, Lord Brahma's own creation. When he creates, he also creates uh, using chaya. And chaya has a sense of abhasa. Abhasa priyaya chaya shabdena. Kvachit prayogaha. Sometimes Maya is referred to as tamas, darkness, ignorance. This refers to Jiva Maya because his actions are directly focused on the Jivas in this aspect. ससर्जे इत्यादौ छायाशक्ति मायाम अवलंब्य सृष्टि आरंभे ब्रह्मा स्वयं अविद्याम आविर्भावितवान् इत्यर्थः. The idea is that it is Lord Brahma himself who, at the beginning of creation, he took shelter of this reflection potency of Maya, and he brought about, or he revealed, avidya. Both Vidya and Avidya are considered to be two bodies of the Supreme Lord, extended bodies. 11.11.3. The Lord himself will tell Uddhava this. Anayor avirbhava bhedasya shruyate. They, Vidya and Avidya, they came about separately. Tatra purvasya, Vidya, how did she come about? That is noted in Padma Purana, in the Kartika Mahatmya section that appears within a conversation between Sri Krishna and Satyabhama. So there, the Devas, they offered prayers to Maya. So they saw Bharati, use Vedic knowledge. Sankshepascha ayam arthaha. In brief, this is the meaning. Parama purushartha bhutam mam rite mad darshanad anyatra eva yat pratiyate yach atmani na prati yeta माम विना स्वतः प्रतीतिरपि यस्य नास्ति इति अर्थः तद् वस्तु आत्मनः मम परमेश्वरस्य मायां विद्या. You should know that to be my Maya, by which, without me, who is the supreme Purushartha, supreme goal of human existence. In other words, without seeing me, whatever is seen, that is Maya. And without me, one does not even see himself correctly. That is Maya. Atra Drishtanta, examples. Yatha abhasa, pratibimba rashmi. Like the rays of reflection. Yatha chetamas, timiramiti. Or like darkness. Atra abhasasya atra adrishyatvam swashtameva. That the example of reflection is clear. Tamasaha bhi jyotir darshanat anyatraiva pratite. And darkness also is seen when you don't see a source of illumination. Jyotiratmakam chakshurvina cha apritidivati. And it is perception without eyesight, which itself requires illumination. Vidyaditi prathama purusa nirdeshasya ayam bhava. Anyan pratyeva khalu ayam upadesha. You should know this. Know it, he's saying. Why is he saying know it? So this instruction is actually relevant to others. Tvam tu maddatta shaktya sakshat eva anubhavan asti. By my potency, you directly experience this. Evam maika drishtam atitya eva rupati vishishtam mam anubhavet. So transcending this vision of Maya, may you experience me, while characterized by my own unique forms and so on. व्यतिरेकमुखेन अनुभावनस्य अयं भावः. So this is an indirect presentation of bringing about this experience. शब्देन यथार्थस्य अपि सत्स्वरूपादेर मायाकार्य आवेशेन एव अनुभवः न भवति. Even though one might have correctly ascertained the truth of the nature of spirituality, theoretically, because of being overcome by the effect of Maya, one does not have experienced knowledge of it. Atas tadartham maya tyachanameva kartavyam. Therefore, for that sake, one must abandon Maya. Etena tad avinabhavat premapi anubhavita iti gamyate. So therefore, we understand that prema also is being given as an experience to him. कृतिखाप किंच जीवस्य परमात्मज्ञान विज्ञाने प्रति माया खलु अंशेन अनुकूला प्रतिकूला च भवति. For the jivatma, in relationship to realized knowledge and theoretical knowledge regarding the Supreme Soul, Maya in a certain aspect is favorable, and in another aspect is unfavorable. Vigyate cha Paramatmani Mayi Yogamaya eva adhikaroti. When one realizes me, the Supreme Soul, then Yogamaya takes over. Sa khalu anukula eva, and she is only favorable. Te dve avashya nirupaniye iti gyapayan. And the Lord wants to point out that both of these two types of mayas have to be understood. And then he brings about a reference to 2.9.26, which is a question. The question, the import of that question was, Lord Brahma was asking, what is the nature of Maya and Yogamaya? Iti prashnottaram tantrena eva kramena aha riteartham iti. This is now being indirectly answered here. यतः अर्थम सत्यम वस्तु विना न प्रतीयते किंतु अर्थः सत्यम वस्तु एव प्रतीयेत इत्यर्थः. तथा यतः अर्थम विना प्रतीयेत अर्थः न प्रतीयेत किंतु अनर्थः प्रतीयेत. That which cannot be perceived without a real substance, in other words, that by which one perceives real substance, and that which is perceived without a substance, in other words, that which by which you don't perceive the real substance, into anartha pratiyeta, and you see that which is not. Tat tam atmani swasmin muktaha baddhaha cha jiva atmanaha mama mayam kramena vidya avidya iti vrittidvayam mayakyam shaktim vidya janya. So you should know that this is Maya, the potency known as Maya, with its two different functions of Vidya and Avidya. Because of the first function, the jiva becomes liberated. Because of the second function, the jiva becomes bound. Vidya ya drishtanta. The example for Vidya is yathabhasa. 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 Just as the reflection. दीपादि प्रकाश दीपादि प्रकाशाद यथा गृहे विद्यमानः घटपटादिर अर्थ एव प्रतीयते. न तु दीप आनयनात् पूर्वं okay, he takes abhasa to mean illumination itself, just like illumination. Abhasa also means technically it's correct, a plus bhasa, profound illumination. So just as the profound illumination of a lamp and so on, दीपादि प्रकाशात् यथा गृहे विद्यमानः घटपटादिर अर्थः एव प्रतीयते. It is because of the illumination of lamps and so on that pots and other items in home are perceived. न तु दीप आनयनात् पूर्वं सम्भावितः घट पट आदि अभावः. Not before bringing the lamp. तथा सर्पवृश्चिकादिर आगन्तुकस्य भयकारणम् अनर्थः प्रतीयते. In fact, before bringing the lamp, there is the experience of fear, which is caused by lack of perception, in the form of the possibility of snakes, scorpions, and so on that might come. एवमेव विद्याया हेतोः मुक्तेन जीवेन स्वस्मिन् इति असम्बन्धं ज्ञानादिकमेव प्रतीयते, न तु अविद्यादशायामेव तद् अभावः. नापि स्वस्मिन् असम्बन्धः देहदैहिकशोकमोहादिकश्च प्रतीयते. So by the influence of vidya, a liberated soul, he does not experience shoka, sorrow, lamentation, and so on in relation to his body or that which is connected to his body. This is very unlike when the jiva is in the status of being overcome by avidya. Avidyaya drishtanta. An example of avidya, yatha tamaha, just as darkness. Andhakarad yatha swagrihe vidyamana ghatapatadir artha na pratiyate. Due to ignorance, one does not perceive the pots, pans, and so on. Into avidyamanaha api sambhavyamanaha sarpachauraadikaha bhayakaranam anartha pratiyate. But even though a snake, a thief, and so on don't exist, there is this possibility that they might exist. And therefore, there is the perception of that which is not there, which is the cause of fear. Evam avidyaya hetoreva baddhena jivena swasmin nitya sambanditaya vartamanamapi jnana anandadikam na pratiyate. And it is because of avidya that the soul who is conditioned, does not perceive his knowledge, his bliss, and so on, which are actually eternally related to him and present in him. किंतु स्वस्मिन् असन्नपि स्वसंबन्धित्वेन वर्तमानः देह दैहिक शोकमोहादिरेव प्रतीयते. And instead, he perceives lamentation, delusion, and so on in relation to his body and that which is connected to his body, as if they are connected to he himself. तेन कुसुमशृङ्गादीनां सत्यत्वे अपि आकाशशशादीनां तत्सम्बन्ध भावात् एव आकाशकुसुमम् अलीकं शशशृङ्गम् अलीकमिति यथा उच्यते, तथैव देहानां तद्धर्माणां शोकमोह सुख दुःखादीनां च प्राधानिकत्वात् सत्यत्वे अपि जीवस्य तत्सम्बन्ध अभावादेव देहादयः मिथ्याभूता इति शास्त्रेषु उच्यते. Then he says that just as we know about flowers do exist. We know about horns, Horn, horns that go on certain animals. They also exist. But if you say that's a flower in the sky, Akasha Kusuma. Akasha Kusuma is an expression that is used to refer to something which does not exist. Now, Akasha exists, Kusuma exists. Akasha means sky, Kusuma means flower. Both of them do exist. But an Akasha Kusuma is false. Similarly, Shasha or a rabbit is real. And a Shringa, horn, is real. But the horn of a rabbit, Shashashringa, that is false. Similarly, in Uh, there are other expressions. The egg of a horse, ghoder deem. In Bengali, I think they still use it. The egg of a horse. A horse is true, egg is true, but horses don't uh, give birth to eggs. So it is that combination which is false. Similarly, the lamentation, delusion, happiness, distress, and so on. These are all features of the bodies, material bodies. So even though these are all true, because they are not related to the jiva, the body, that which is connected to the body, the lamentation, delusion, happiness, distress, and on pertaining to the body, are described in the scriptures as being false. जीवस्य मिथ्याभूत अपि देह संबंध खलु अविद्यया कल्प्यते विद्यया लुप्यते. And this relationship with the jiva, even though it is false, it is created by avidya and it is obscured by vidya. Iti vidya avidyayor drishtantau abhasa tamasi. Therefore, there are these two examples of आभास and tamas. इति अत्र छायातपौ यत्र न घृद्र पक्षौ इति अष्टमस्कन्धे एव प्रमाणं ज्ञेयम्. The proof for the validity of this interpretation is 8.5.27. But this is also explained in various other ways. तमो दृष्टान्तो इयम् आवरणांश एव आवरण विक्षेपयोस्तु दृष्टान्तः सर्वव्याघ्रभूत आवेशाद्याज्ञेया इत्याहोस्तेऽपि तामस्त्वात् तमःशब्देनैव ग्राह्या इत्यपरे. So there are different persons who give various examples about different natures of Maya. There is one feature of Maya known as avarana. Another feature of Maya is known as vikshepa. Avarana means to cover up the living entity with a perception of falsity, and vikshepa is to when the jiva tries to get out of the clutches of Maya, she uses further features to agitate and bring the jiva back under control. अथ अर्थशब्दस्य धनवाचित्वा श्लेषेण भाग्यप्राप्त स्वीय बहुधन वणिक् इव विद्यालब्धजन आनंदो मुक्तः संपन्नत्वेन निरूप्यते तथा अभाग्य अनधिगत स्वीय धन वणिक् इव विद्यावृत ज्ञानानंद बद्ध जीव दरिद्रत्वेन एव इति ज्ञेयः. The word artha, rate artham, also means wealth. So indirectly it is pointed out that a merchant who has a lot of wealth acquired by his good fortune, he is compared to the liberated jiva. He is considered to be prosperously situated. He is a liberated jiva, filled with, he has attained knowledge and bliss by vidya. So then another merchant who, due to his lack of good fortune, has not attained his wealth, he is like conditioned jiva who is whose knowledge and bliss are covered by avidya, and he is to be understood to be a poverty-stricken soul. एवं विद्यया त्वं पदार्थस्य जीवात्मनः अनुभवः भवति न तु तत्पदार्थस्य परमात्मनः तस्य निर्गुणत्वात् निर्गुणया भक्त्या एव अपरोक्ष अनुभवः सम्भवेत्. So through this vidya, one can the jivatma can attain experience of himself as a jivatma. Cannot attain through this vidya potency, one cannot attain experience of the supreme soul because that supreme soul is beyond the modes of material nature and can only experience directly the Supreme Lord through bhakti, which is also beyond the modes of material nature. Because this is stated in 11.14.21 by the Supreme Lord. And in 11.25.24 also, it is stated, Kaivalyam Satvikam Jnanam. One can experience the isolated nature of the soul within material existence in the mode of goodness. But knowledge of the Supreme Lord has to come about through a transcendental process. देहादि व्यतिरिक्तात्मक ज्ञान रूपा या यम विद्या तस्या सत्वगुणत्वात् अनया गुणातीतस्य परमात्मनः नैव अनुभवः. The knowledge that the living entity, the Atma, is distinct from the body and the features of the body. This is Vidya. But this is in the mode of goodness. And through this, there is certainly no experience of the Supreme Soul who is beyond the gunas. Yaduktam Bhagavata, as this has been stated by the Supreme Lord in 11.25.30, 32, and so on. No. Then a question arises. Tarhi muktajivena paramatmanah aparoksha anubhavartham bhaktihi kuto labhyatam. So in order for a liberated soul, in order to attain direct experience of the Supreme Soul by the Mukta Jiva, liberated soul, how can bhakti be attained? Uchyate. The answer is given. Jnanadhikarina Sankhya Yoga Tapa Adibhir Bhakti Mishraireva Janitaya Vidyaya Vidya Nivartakaya Prathamam Padartha Anubhava. For those who are eligible for the process of jnana, they take up the processes of Sankhya. Of course, this is Vedic Sankhya. Yoga, tapas, and so on, which are mixed with Haribhakti. And then this generates Vidya. Through that, avidya is neutralized. So in the beginning, they only experience the Jivatma as being distinct from matter. Tataha tu asya avidyataha vimuktasya nirindhanagni विद्यायापि उपरमतारतम्येन पूर्वसिद्धं भक्तिचन्द्रकलायाः तद् उपरागविच्युतायाः तद् उद्गमतारतम्यम्. Then, when freed from avidya, just as fire, when you light a lamp with fire, that fire, it burns up the wick, and then finally it also disappears. So like that, vidya also will disappear, and to the extent that it disappears, that Bhagavad Bhakti that was previously found in that was previously eclipsed by so many other processes. So that eclipsing will also go down, and to that proportion, bhakti will again and again increase. Tayeva bhaktya punah punah abhyastaya tat padarthasya paramatmanah anubhavatartamya. And in proportion to that bhakti now being increased and practiced, there will be a corresponding degree to which one experiences the Supreme Soul. Yaduktam Bhagavata Gitasu, as stated by the Supreme Lord in Sri Bhagavad Gita 18.54, 18.55. Tatascha, okay, okay. Jati pramanabhyam alpiyasya taya bhaktya निर्विशेष ब्रह्मण एव अनुभव न तो अनंतचिद विशेष ब्रह्मण भगवतः. So when we are talking about bhakti being found to a small extent within these other processes, through that bhakti, that is only experience of the impersonal Brahman, not the uh, personal Brahman who is qualified with unlimited spiritual characteristics. Bhagavan, yatha alpatejasvi chakshushkena janena manimayi murtihi samanyatah tejomayi eva drishyate. Just as a person who has very little eyesight, he can only see a shining form. Like for instance, if you take a murti which is decorated with jewels, it can only be seen in general as something shining. Natu mukha nasika netra karnadi visheshamayi. It is not very clearly seen. The distinct features are not seen of the face, the nose, the eyes, the ears, and all these characteristics. Tatascha vidyaya samasthena eva uparame sati उद्भूत नैर्गुण्यस्य तस्य तयैव भक्त्या ब्रह्मानुभवस्य अपि पूर्णत्वम् एतदेव निर्वाण शब्दवाच्यं जीव ब्रह्मैक्यम्. And then when vidya completely subsides and then one comes to the point of complete transcendence, through that bhakti, there is complete experience of Brahman. This status is what is known as nirvana. And this is referred to as the oneness of the Jiva and Brahman. 18.55 refers to this. Yattu chikshakti vittinam sarabhuta kripa vilasa rupa paramottama shuddha bhaktir jati pramanabhyam atyadhika sa prabala paramaswatantra guna doshadikam api aganayanti badheti jive rakshasa pulinda pukkashado duracharepi yadrsheva udayate विप्रे संन्यासिनी मुक्ते भी न उदयते तया एव अविद्या पर्यंत समस्त क्लेश ध्वंसः. Then there is some other feature. There is another potency. This potency is known as Shuddha Bhakti, pure Bhakti, and it is supremely first class. It is of the nature of a sport of the Lord's Kripa Shakti. It is the very essence of the functions of the Supreme Lord's spiritual potency. By measurement and categorically, it is superior to this Vidya, because that Vidya is just the mode of goodness function of Maya, whereas this is something entirely different. This is the Nirguna. This is beyond the three modes of material nature. So it is categorically different. It is also supremely powerful. It is supremely independent, without any consideration of goodness, badness in the Jivatma, who might be fully conditioned and who may be even from very degraded backgrounds of behavior, such as Rakshasas, Pullindas, Putkashas, and so on. By itself, it might come about, and it may not come about within Vipras and Sannyasis who may be liberated. By this potency, all the distresses of that conditioned soul are destroyed, all the way up to avidya. Yaduktam, as it is stated in 3.25.33. Taya eva anantachid visheshasya bhagavata api aparoksha anubhava bhave. And it is through this potency that one has direct experience of Bhagavan, who is characterized in unlimited spiritual features, with unlimited spiritual features. Yatha bahutara tejasvi swachakshushkena janena samanyatas tejomayi visheshatascha mukha nasika netra karnadi saundaryamayi cha murtir bhatrena eva drishyate. And just as if a person has very good eyesight, then that person, he can see both the general illumination of beautiful form, and one can also very nicely see the beautiful face, nose, eyes, ears, and so on. Tadevam bhakti vidha. And this bhakti is of two types: nirguna, gunamayicha. Krishna bhakti is of two types. One is transcendental and one is material. That means one which is beyond the modes of material nature and one which is mixed with the modes of material nature. Atra adyaya pakadashayam prema bhakti sanjaya bhagavad vashikara. The first one, when it is fully mature, it is known as prema bhakti and it brings Bhagavan under control. Sachidanandamaya Bhagavad Rupa Guna Leela Madhurya Anubhavascha. And it can bring about an experience of the sweetness of the forms, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Sachidananda in nature. Dvitiyeya, Sattvikya, Sattvagunat Vichyutaya eva Nirvishesha Brahma Sukhanubhava Matramiti. Through the second version, Gunamayi Bhakti, in its sattvic format, one only experiences Nirvishesha Brahma Sukha, the happiness of experiencing impersonal Brahman. Tasmad Brahma Sukhanubhava Dashataha Purvasu eva Dashasu Jiveshu Mayaya Adhikare Siddhi. And even before one comes to that point of experiencing that impersonal Brahman, there are various stages where the jivas are eligible for coming under Maya. यथा च ऐश्वर्य अनुभूत्या प्रेम संकोच ज्ञापनार्थम यया प्रकाशितं विश्वरूपं परमात्म स्वरूपं च अर्जुनः साक्षात् अनुभूव तत्रैव वर्तमानमपि कृष्णस्वरूपं यया आवरणान् न अनुभूव समयान्तरे च यया आच्छादितं विश्वरूपादिकं न अनुभूव विभुजं श्रीकृष्णमेव अनुभूव. So now that Yogamaya feature of the Lord, that is now explained. Actually, even before that, he explained how Yashoda Devi, she sees Krishna and how she saw the universe that was manifested for him. Because one feature reveals and another feature covers. So, for instance, he analyzes Arjuna's experience of the Vishwarupa here and Arjuna's experience of Krishna himself. So, at a certain point, his Krishna Rupa is his perception of Krishna's form, original form of Krishna, that is covered up. And he is shown the universal form. And at other times, the universal form, the perception of the universal form, that is covered up. And then he is seeing the two-handed Krishna. Atra ekada eva ekasya swarupasya prakashanam anyasya avaranam iti purvato vishesha. So in that way, one form is not shown and another is shown. This is a little distinct from the previous example of Yashoda's perception of the jiva, of the universe inside Krishna's mouth. There she could see the universe, including Gokula, Yashoda, Krishna inside. So he was able to see that. And for another moment, she was not able to see it. But all of that she could see inside Krishna's mouth. So that is a different type of perception. This is another type of perception. And then he analyzes Lord Brahma's perception of all the cowherd boys and all of that Krishna himself had expanded into. Very fine. So there's not much time. Anyway, here is a little bit. Sacha Maya Trividha. Anyway, he's saying that Yogamaya Shakti is fully spiritual. But Maya is of three types: Pradhana, Vidya, and Vidya. The definition of Pradhana is stated in the teachings of the Navayogendras. Avidya's functioning is that of superimposing and bringing about a false perception. Vidya cancels that false perception. In that way, there are three different effects. The effect of Pradhana is true. The effect of Avidya is false. Whereas the effect of Vidya is the destruction of that false perception. Tat tanmayam jagadidam amshena satyam amshena asatyam. So this visible universe of our experience, it is a mixture of these three. So it is partially true, partially untrue. तथा जीवानां नित्यत्वात् भगवन् निकेतनादि भक्ति उपकरणानां निर्गुणत्वात् च अंशेन नित्यत्वमपि वादिभिर्यथा स्वमतं नानारूपतया निरूपितम्. So, for instance, there are certain the abodes of the Supreme Lord, the temples of the Supreme Lord in this world. They are very helpful for engagement in bhakti, and they are beyond the modes of material nature. So, in part, it is true. And then he gives a summary here. In the previous verse, it has already been concluded that in any stage of the cosmic manifestation, its appearance, its sustenance, its growth, its interactions of different energies, its deterioration, and its disappearance, all has its basic relation with the existence of the personality of Godhead. And as such, whenever there is forgetfulness of this prime relation with the Lord, and whenever things are accepted as real without being related to the Lord, that conception is called a product of the illusory energy of the Lord. Because nothing can exist without the Lord, it should be known that the illusory energy is also an energy of the Lord. The right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relationship with the Lord is called Yogamaya, or the energy of union. Yoga means union. And the wrong conception of detaching a thing from its relationship with the Lord is called the Lord's Daivi Maya or Mahamaya. Both the Mayas also have connections with the Lord because nothing can exist without being related to Him. As such, the wrong conception of detaching relationships from the Lord is not false, but illusory. Misconceiving one thing for another thing is called illusion. For example, accepting a rope as a snake is illusion, but the rope is not false. The rope, as it exists in front of the illusion person, is not at all false. But accepting it as a snake is illusory. Therefore, this material manifestation is not false. But the wrong conception of accepting the material manifestation as being divorced from the energy of the Lord is illusion. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. Anything that appears not to be produced out of my energy is called Maya. The conception that the living entity is formless or that the Supreme Lord is formless is also illusion. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.12, it was said by the Lord in the midst of the battlefield that the warrior standing in front of Arjuna himself, and even the Lord had all existed before. They were existing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and they would all continue to be individual personalities in the future also, even after the annihilation of the present body, and even after being liberated from the bondage of material existence. In all circumstances, the Lord and the living entities are individual beings, no, individual personalities, and the personal features of both the Lord and living beings are never abolished. Only the influence of the illusory energy, the reflection of light in the darkness, can, by the mercy of the Lord, be removed. In the material world, the light of the sun is also not independent, nor that of the moon. The real source of light is the Brahmajyoti, which diffuses light from the transcendental body of the Lord, and the same light is reflected in varieties of light: the light of the sun, the light of the moon, the light of fire, or the light of electricity. So the identity of the self as being unconnected with the Supreme Self, the Lord, is also illusion. And the false claim, I am the Supreme, is the last illusory snare of the same Maya, or the external energy of the Lord. The Vedanta Sutra in the very beginning affirms that everything is born from the Supreme. And thus, as explained in the previous verse, all individual living entities are born from the energy of the Supreme Living Being, the personality of Godhead. Brahma himself was born from the energy of the Lord. And all other living entities are born from the energy of the Lord through the agency of Brahma. None of them has any existence without being dovetailed with the Supreme Law. The independence of the individual living entity is not real independence, but is just the reflection of the real independence existing in the Supreme Being, the Lord. The false claim of supreme independence by the conditioned souls is illusion, and this conclusion is stated in this verse. Persons with the pure fund of knowledge become illusion, and therefore the so-called scientists, physiologists, empiric philosophers, etc., become dazzled by the glaring reflection of the sun, moon, electricity, etc., and deny the existence of the Supreme Lord, putting forward theories and different speculations about the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of everything material. The medical practitioner may deny the existence of the soul in the physiological bodily construction of an individual person, but he cannot give life to a dead body, even though all the mechanisms of the body exist even after death. The psychologist makes a serious study of the physiological conditions of the brain, as if the construction of the cerebral lump were the machine of the functioning mind. But in the dead body, the psychologist cannot bring back the function of the mind. These scientific studies of the cosmic manifestation or the bodily construction independent of the Supreme Lord are different, reflective, intellectual gymnastics only, but at the end, they are all illusion and nothing more. All such advancement of science and knowledge in the present context of material civilization is but an act of the covering influence of the illusory energy. The illusory energy has two phases of existence, namely the covering influence and the throwing influence. By the throwing influence, the illusory energy throws the living entities into the darkness of ignorance. And by the covering influence, she covers the eyes of men possessing a poor fund of knowledge about the existence of the Supreme Person, who enlightened the Supreme Being Brahma. The identity of Brahma with the Supreme Lord is never claimed here. And therefore, such a foolish claim by the man with a poor fund of knowledge is another display of the illusory energy of the Lord. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita that demoniac persons who deny the existence of the Lord are thrown more and more into the darkness of ignorance. And thus such demoniac persons transmigrate life after life without any knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The same man, however, is enlightened in the disciplic succession from Brahmaji, who was personally instructed by the Lord at the beginning of creation, or in the disciplic succession from Arjuna, who was personally instructed by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita. The same man thus accepts this statement of the Lord, Aham sarvasya prabho, mattas sarvam pravartate, iti matva bhajante maam buddha bhavas samanvita. Bhagavad Gita 10.8. The Lord is the original source of all emanations, and everything that is created, maintained, and annihilated exists by the energy of the Lord. The sane man who knows this is actually learned, and therefore he becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Although the reflective energy of the Lord displays various illusions to the eyes of persons with a poor fund of knowledge, the sane person knows clearly that the Lord can act even from far, far beyond our vision by his different energies, just as fire can diffuse heat and light from a distant place. In the medical science of the ancient sages known as the Ayurveda, there is definite acceptance of the Lord's supremacy in the following words. Jagadyoner anitchasya chidanandaika rupina humsostu prakritir nitya pratichayeva bhaswatah achetanapi chaitanya yogena paramatman akarod vishwam akhilam anityam natakakritim. There is one supreme person who is the progenitor of this cosmic manifestation, and whose energy acts as Prakriti or the material nature, dazzling like a reflection. By such illusory action of Prakriti, even dead matter is caused to move by the cooperation of the living energy of the Lord, and the material world appears like a dramatic performance to the ignorant eyes. The ignorant person, therefore, may even be a scientist or physiologist in the drama of Prakriti, while the same person knows Prakriti as the illusory energy of the Lord. By such a conclusion, as confirmed by the Bhagavad Gita, it is clear that the living entities are also a display of the Lord's superior energy, Paraprakriti, just as the material world is a display of the Lord's inferior energy, Aparaprakriti. The superior energy of the Lord cannot be as good as the Lord, although there is very little difference between the energy and the possessor of the energy, or the heat and the fire. Fire is possessed of heat, but heat is not fire. This simple thing is not understood by the man with a poor fund of knowledge who falsely claims that the fire and heat are the same. This energy of the fire, namely heat, is explained here as a reflection and not directly fire. Therefore, the living energy represented by the living entities is a reflection of the Lord and never the Lord himself. Being the reflection of the Lord, the existence of the living entity is dependent on the Supreme Lord, who is the original light. The material energy may be compared to darkness, as actually it is darkness, and the activities of the living entities in the darkness are reflections of the original light. The Lord should be understood by the context of this verse. Non-dependence of both the energies of the Lord is explained as Maya or illusion. No one can make a solution of the darkness of ignorance simply by the reflection of light. Similarly, no one can come out of material existence simply by the reflected light of the common man. One has to receive the light from the original light itself. The reflection of sunlight in the darkness is unable to drive out the darkness, but the sunlight outside the reflection can drive out the darkness completely. In darkness, no one can see the things in a room. Therefore, a person in the dark is afraid of snakes and scorpions, although there may not be such things. But in the light, the things in the room can be clearly seen, and the fear of snakes and scorpions is at once removed. Therefore, one has to take shelter of the light of the Lord, as in the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, not the reflective personalities who have no touch with the Lord. No one should hear the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam from a person who does not believe in the existence of the Lord. Such a person is already doomed, and any association with such a doomed person makes the associator also doomed. According to the Padma Purana, within the material compass, there are innumerable material universes, and all of them are full of darkness. Any living being, beginning from the Brahmas, there are innumerable Brahmas in innumerable universes, to the insignificant ant, are all born in darkness, and they require factual light from the Lord to see him directly, just as the sun can be seen only by the direct light of the sun. No lamp or man-made torchlight, however powerful it may be, can help one see the sun. The sun reveals itself. Therefore, the action of different energies of the Lord or the personality of God himself can be realized by the light manifested by the causeless mercy of the Lord. The impersonalists say that God cannot be seen. God can be seen by the light of God and not by man-made speculations. Here, this light is specifically mentioned as Vidyat, which is an order by the Lord to Brahma. This direct order of the Lord is a manifestation of his internal energy, and this particular energy is a means of seeing the Lord face to face. Not only Brahma, but anyone who may be graced by the Lord to see such merciful, direct internal energy can also realize the personality of Godhead without any mental speculation. 35. Yatha mahanti bhutani bhuteshu chavacheshvanu pravishthanya pravishtani tatha teshu nateshvaham. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. Yatha bhava iti tat spashtayati. What is the nature of the Supreme Lord? This question was asked by Lord Brahma. So he clarifies that here. Yatha maha भूतानि भौतिकेषु अनुसृष्टेरनन्तरं प्रविष्टानि तेषु उपलभ्यमानत्वात्. After creation, the universal elements enter into the cosmos because we see that the cosmos contains the gross elements. Apravishtani cha prageva karanataya teshu vidyamanatva. At the same time, they do not enter into the cosmos because they are found uh, in the very cause, the modes of material nature, sorry, the gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, they have their cause. And the cause also exists. अथा तेषु भूत भौतिकेषु अहम न च तेषु अहम एवं भूता मम सत्ता इति अर्थः. Similarly, I am both inside the living creatures. I'm inside the elements and the products of the elements, and I am not. This will be further clarified. अथ तस्यैव प्रेम्णः रहस्यत्वं बोधयति यथा महान्ति. So now, the Supreme Lord explains how love of Godhead is confidential. यथा महान्ति इत्यादि. यथा महाभूतानि भूतेषु अप्रविष्टानि बहिस्थितानि अपि अनुप्रविष्टानि अन्तस्थितानि भान्ति. Just as the elements, even though they are situated outside, they have entered into the universe. तथा लोकातीत वैकुण्ठस्थितत्वेन अप्रविष्टः अपि अहं तेषु तत्तद् गुणविख्यातेषु न तेषु अनतजनेषु प्रविष्टः हृदि स्थितः अहं भामि. Similarly, even though the Supreme Lord is situated far beyond all the worlds of material existence in Vaikuntha, and as such, I am not entered into this universe. Still, I am not found in this world amongst those who may be famous for having various great qualities. But I am within the hearts of those who have surrendered unto me. In other words, I am perceived. अत्र महाभूतानाम् अंशभेदेन प्रवेश अप्रवेशौ तस्य तु प्रकाशभेदेन इति भेदेपि प्रवेश अप्रवेशमात्र साम्येन दृष्टान्तः. Just as the gross elements, a part of them have entered and a part of them have not entered. Similarly, so is the case with the Supreme Lord's entrance and non-entrance. तदेवं तेषां तादृगात्मवशीकारिणी वशीकारिणी एव भक्तिर्नाम रहस्यमिति सूचितम्. So this is a pointer towards Prema Bhakti being the confidential controller of the Supreme Lord who has this nature. And then he refers to Brahma Samhita 5.29 and 5.30. He also refers to 9.29. Another explanation. तेषु यथा तानि बहिस्थितानि च अन्तस्थितानि च भान्ति तद्वद्भक्तेषु अहम् अन्तर्मनोवृत्तिषु बहिरिन्द्रियवृत्तिषु च स्फुरामि इति च. Just as the gross elements are both situated outside and inside and they are perceived as such. Similarly, I reveal myself both within the functioning of the minds of my devotees as well as externally. External to their sense perception, also I reveal myself. Bhakteshu sarvatha ananya vritta hetu nama kimapi swaprakasham premakyam anandatmakam vastu mama rahasyam divyanjita. So the confidential fact is that there is something known as prema bhakti to me, which is blissful in nature. And that is the one and only cause for this perception under all circumstances for my devotees. And therefore, Lord Sri Brahma himself had stated in 2.6.34 that I never fall down into material existence because in my heart I have held on to Lord Hari. There is this explanation which is in line with the flow of the discussion, and therefore this interpretation is given here. Swaryam Chaitat Shri Bhagavata Parama Bhaktabhyam Arjuna Uddhavabhyam Antokti Eva Kathitam. And it is this explanation which is also given by Shri Bhagavan to his two supreme devotees, Arjuna and Uddhava. We know from Bhagavad Gita, Sarvaguhyatamam Bhu Yashvaname Paramavacha. And in Uddhava Gita, Subhopimam Yakshyami. I'll tell you this very confidential secret of love for me. Idamaiva rahasyam Shri Naradaya Swayam Shri Brahmana eva prakatikritam. And it is this very secret which was revealed by Shri Brahma to Shri Narada personally. Bhagavatam 2.7.51 to 52. It explains this Bhagavatam by which all men can attain bhakti to Bhagavan. Krishna Chakravarti Thakur. Evam mayam yogamayam cha tantrenaiva lakshayatva tabhyam adhikriteshu saguna nirguna lokeshu brahmana prishtam swakrida prakaram tantrenaiva. So having indirectly characterized Maya and Yogamaya, he then speaks about the nature of his pastimes, which was asked by Brahma as in relation to people who are within the modes and who are beyond the modes of material nature. Yatha mahabhutani akashadini bhuteshu manusya deva manusya tiryadadishu anupravishtani teshu prabhuyanatva apravishtani cha pratak vidyamanatva. Just as the gross elements such as earth, water, the gross elements are earth, water, fire, or ether. They have entered into the bodies of the devas, manushyas, animals, and so on, because we see them. We see that their bodies contain these gross elements. But they are also that the gross elements also have not entered because they are also separated. They are also separately situated. So we have the universal coverings with earth, water, fire, air, ether. They are separately situated also. तथा तेषु भूतभौतिकेषु अहं प्रविष्टः सन्नपि पृथक् शुद्धः सत्त्वात्मकस्वनि वर्तमानत्वात् अप्रविष्टश्च अस्मि. So even though I have entered into matter and the products of matter, still in my own abode, I am separately situated, and my own abode is entirely spiritual, Shuddha Sattva. Because of that, I have not entered. Kintu mahabhutanam acetanatvad eva bhuteshu pravesha asangrahitah. Mama tu chetanatvepi akashavad daso swagrihyeshu avalipta eva vasati itivad. Teshu sarveshu pravesha niyamana palanadine asanga rahitapi iti. Evam bhuta bhuteshu mahikeshu asanga rahita eva krideti bhav. Just as the gross elements, because they are unconscious, their entrance into the living creatures is devoid of any attraction to them. Similarly, even though I am a conscious being, like the sky, which is untouched in one's home, uncontaminated by one's home. Like that, I am found amongst the living creatures who are products of Maya without any uh, attachment to them. Despite my entrance into this world, despite my control of this world, despite my protection of this world, and so on. So my pastimes are entirely uh, devoid of any attraction towards them. तथा तेषु प्रसिद्धेषु नटेषु प्रणतभक्तजनेषु प्रविष्टान्तःकरणेषु दर्शनं दातुं तथा अप्रविष्टः बहिस्थितश्च तेषां नयनेषु स्वसौन्दर्यम् अर्पयितुं नासासु स्वसौरभ्यं प्रवेशयितुं तैः सहोक्ति प्रत्युक्तीकुर्वन् तेषां कर्णेषु स्वसौस्वर्य अमृतं पूरयितुं स्पर्शनालिङ्गनादिदानैः तेषाम् अंगेषु स्वीय सौकुमार्य माधुर्यादिकं च अनुभावयितुम् इति तेषु गुणातीत भक्तेषु अंतर्बहिर्यया त्यक्तुम् अशक्येषु आसंग सहित एव मम क्रीडा इति भावः. So the implication is nateshu, not nateshu, sorry, nateshu. So the implication is despite this being the situation with my dealings with the creatures of this world, there are these well-known surrendered souls who offer obeisances unto me, my devotees. I desire to grant them a vision of myself within their minds. So I enter into their minds. And externally also, I situate myself in order to grant them my beauty to their eyes, my sweet fragrance to their noses. By talking, by conversing with them, I want to fill their ears with the nectar of my sweet speech. And I want them to experience my tenderness, my sweetness by touching them, embracing them, and so on. So now these are devotees who are beyond the modes of material nature. These are prema bhaktas. For them, I am unable to keep away from them. So therefore, both internally and externally, I engage in pastimes with them, but this is with attachment. The great elements of material creation, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether, all enter into the body of all manifested entities, the seas, mountains, aquatics, plants, reptiles, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and everything else materially manifested. And at the same time, such elements are differently situated. In the developed stage of consciousness, a human being can study both physiological and physical science, but the basic principles of such sciences are nothing but the material elements and nothing more. The body of the human being and the body of the mountain, as also the bodies of the demigods, including Brahma, are all of the same ingredients, earth, water, etc. And at the same time, the elements are beyond the body. The elements were created first, and therefore they entered into the bodily construction later. But in both circumstances, they entered the cosmos and also did not enter. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, by his different energies, namely the internal and external, is within everything in the manifested cosmos. And at the same time, he is outside of everything, situated in the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha Loka, as described before. This is very nicely stated in the Brahma Samhita 5.37 as follows. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis Abhirya eva Nijrupataya Khalabhi Goloka eva Nivasatyakilatma Bhuto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead Govinda, who by expansion of his internal potency of transcendental existence, knowledge and bliss, enjoys in his own and expanded forms in Goloka. Simultaneously, he enters into every atom of the creation. This expansion of his plenary parts is also more definitely explained in the same Brahma Samhita 5.35 as follows. Ekopyasau rachitam jagadanda kotim yakshaktirasti jagadandachaya yadantaha. Andantarastha paramana chayantarastham govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead Govinda, who by one of his primary portions enters into the existence of every universe and every particle of the atoms and thus unlimitedly manifests in infinite energy all over the material creation. The impersonalists can imagine or even perceive that the Supreme Brahman is thus all pervading. And therefore, they conclude that there is no possibility of his personal form. Herein lies the mystery of transcendental knowledge of the personality of Godhead. This mystery is transcendental love of Godhead. And one who is charged with such transcendental love of Godhead can, without difficulty, see the personality of Godhead in every atom and every movable or immovable object. And at the same time, he can see the personality of Godhead in his own abode, Goloka, enjoying eternal pastimes with his eternal associates, who are also expansions of his transcendental existence. This vision is the real mystery of spiritual knowledge, as stated by the Lord in the beginning of his instructions to Brahmaji, Sarahasyam Tadangam Cha. This mystery is the most confidential part of the knowledge of the Supreme, and it is impossible for the mental speculators to discover it by dint of intellectual gymnastics. The mystery can be revealed through the process recommended by Brahmaji in his Brahma Samhita 5.38 as follows. Remanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santas Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shyama Sundaramachinti Gunaswarupam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship the original personality of Godhead Govinda, whom the pure devotees, their eyes smeared with the ointment of love of Godhead, always observe within their hearts. This Govinda, the original personality of Godhead, is Shamsundar with all transcendental qualities. Therefore, although he is present in every atom, the Supreme Personality of Godhead may not be visible to the dry speculators. Still, the mystery is unfolded before the eyes of the pure devotees, because their eyes are anointed with the love of Godhead. And this love of Godhead can be attained only by the practice of transcendental loving service of the Lord and nothing else. The vision of the devotees is not ordinary. It is purified by the process of devotional service. In other words, as the universal elements are both within and without, similarly, the Lord's name, form, qualities, pastimes, entourage, etc., as they are described in the revealed scriptures, or as performed in the Vaikuntha Lokas, far, far beyond the material cosmic manifestation, are factually being televised in the heart of the devotee. The man with a poor fund of knowledge cannot understand. Although by material science one can see things far away by means of television, actually the spiritually developed person is able to have the television of the kingdom of God always reflected within his heart. That is the mystery of knowledge of the personality of God. The Lord can award anyone and everyone liberation, mukti, from the bondage of material existence. But he rarely awards the privilege of love of Godhead, as confirmed by Narada. Muktim dadati karhichit smana bhakti yogam. This transcendental devotional service of the Lord is so wonderful that the occupation keeps the deserving devotee always wrapped in psychological activities without deviation from the absolute touch. Thus, love of God developed in the heart of the devotee is a great mystery. Brahmaji previously told Narada that the desires of Brahmaji are never unfulfilled because he is always absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Nor has he any desire in his heart save and except the transcendental service of the Lord. That is the beauty and mystery of the process of Bhakti Yoga. As the Lord's desire is infallible because he is Achyuta. Similarly, the desires of the devotees in the transcendental service of the Lord are also Achyuta, infallible. This is very difficult, however, for the layman to understand without knowledge of the mystery of devotional service, as it is very difficult to know the potency of touchstone. As touchstone is rarely found, a pure devotee of the Lord is also rarely to be seen, even amongst millions of liberated souls. Kotishwapi Mahamuni. Out of all kinds of perfections attained by the process of knowledge, yoga perfection in devotion service is the highest of all and the most mysterious also, even more mysterious than the 8 kinds of mystic perfection attained by the process of yogic performances. In the Bhagavad Gita 18.64, the Lord therefore advised Arjuna about this Bhakti Yoga. Sarvaguhya tamam bhuya, shruname paramam vacham. Just hear from me again about the most confidential part of the instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. In Srimad Bhagavatam 2.7.51, the same was confirmed by Brahmaji to Narada in the following words. Idam Bhagavatam nam janme bhagavatoditam sangrahoyam vibhuti nam tvametad vipuli kuru. Brahmaji said to Narada Whatever I have spoken to you about the Bhagavata was explained to me by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I'm advising you to explain these topics nicely so that people may easily understand the mysterious Bhakti Yoga by transcendental loving service to the Lord. It is to be noted here that the mystery of Bhakti Yoga was disclosed to Brahmaji by the Lord himself. Brahmaji explained the same mystery to Narada. Narada explained it to Vyasa. Vyasa explained it to Shukadeva Goswami. And that same knowledge is coming down in the unalloyed chain of disciplic succession. If one is fortunate enough to have received the knowledge in the transcendental disciplic succession, surely he will have the chance to understand the mystery of the Lord and that of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sound incarnation of the Lord. Okay, I'll stop with this. What is this? Achyutanam Das suddenly entered inside and suddenly is asking questions.
No, bro, we both were there with Mohan Prabhu's phone. Bro, the question is, it is from previous verse, number 34, where you were explaining about this Akash Pushp and Shashi Shringa. So, how to apply this analogy? Like, I am soul and there is material body, but I am not this material body. This is how.
Right. Right. It's our ahanta and mamata, which is the problem. So all the shoka, moha, bhaya, the lamentation, delusions, fears, apprehensions, these are all based on entire falsities. It's just like that story that we keep hearing about a Chinese man. He fell in love with some Chinese actress, drama actress, and later, and he was in love with the drama actress for many years, all from a distance. Never met her, and one day wanted to meet her, and finally discovered that it is actually a man who was always putting on the dress of a woman. But in his mind, this man had fallen in love with her. In his mind, he had married her, had children, and had a house, and there are so many things. Everything is based on falsity. Based on falsity. So that is the example of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur there. Okay. This is a very interesting explanation by Vishwanath Chakravarti. Okay, we'll resume tomorrow. On Shakalpataru Veshya Pasandabhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.